through the get-go that I was a Black Hood, ever, until the very next episode after the Carrie musical, when all of a sudden Betty and Cheryl were all about Hal being the Black Hood. And then when I was reading those scripts, I was thinking, okay, well so this is a little bit too red herring-ish. It's pointing at me a little too much, which I thought, okay, so I'm going to be the guy that everyone thinks now is a Black Hood, and then it won't be me. It'll be a full twist on who it is, and then it was me. But I never, ever thought that the Black Hood was me, ever, in season 2. That's why I hate saying that sometimes. I don't want to ruin it for you guys, thinking that, everyone always comes up to me, I always knew that was you in the hood. I could tell. You had the same eyebrows. I'm like, yeah. If you guys go back and see in the episode in season 3, which on my table, I took a photo of myself because I just thought that the light was really cool behind me when we were out in the forest, and so I had the hood on, and so I was waiting to do the scene where I come in and Betty and I have a little standoff with the guns and stuff. And so I just took a quick shot, and that photo is actually on my table out there. Again, that's the only time I ever wore the hood. So if you compare those photos with the Black Hood that has been around all season 2 and whatnot, you'll probably see quite a difference. I have blue eyes, he has green. I never could figure that out, honestly. I used to think, is the writing staff losing their mind? I mean, and even when it was starting to point in my direction, I always thought, well, the Andrews and the Coopers, they've lived beside each other their whole life, and I've known Archie since he was a little kid, and his whole thing was, I'll never forget those green eyes, when he was explaining who shot his dad. And so I just thought it was kind of odd to think that, that he didn't really recognize that it was me, So, but it's a comic book world, you gotta suspend belief sometimes,
I, as well, have a two-part question. The first question is, do you think Hal would be a good or bad serpent if he were one? And the second question is, how different is Riverdale compared to Archie comics?
So, would Hal be a good serpent or not? Well, I think that, I think he would. I think he sort of became a guy who would make a good serpent, yeah. I don't think that he was really that guy before, or I shouldn't say that because I guess he always had that dark secret about it. So yeah, I think he would fit in with the serpents, or maybe he doesn't even have the same value level as the serpents. He was pretty dark. And I always used to look at that Black Hood character as I always felt sorry for him, because really, if you watch that whole movie, that's just a little 8-year-old boy that's being brainwashed by his family to do these things that they were teaching him. And so that's why I was always hoping, and maybe it still could, but I was always hoping that there'd be a way for Hal to redeem himself from thinking that way and be sort of revamped, to sort of, taught that what that wasn't about purging sin and you're doing a great thing, that it was like, that someone taught you to be evil. And so maybe there was a way for him to sort of unteach himself to be evil. So that's the way I always thought of that. And then, yeah, as far as the Riverdale that you see on TV and the Riverdale that's in the comic book, I'd say they're pretty much about as much of a 180 as you can be, You've got the All-American Archie comics, and then you've got this dark little town of Riverdale in our show. And I think it's really interesting, to tell you the truth, because I think it's really cool how they amalgamate contemporary, so the way we dress, and we do have cell phones and stuff, but then you go into like when we used to do the Riverdale Register stuff, you'd walk in and like all the computers were old, and all the rotary phones, even in our house, it's a rotary phone on the wall, and sort of, all the cars we drive from the 60s and stuff. So I always thought that was interesting, how they tried to take pieces of the comic book and still put them in our world. Do you remember the dream sequence around the table when when Cole wore like his sweater that Jughead wears and stuff like that. Was a fun episode because we all sort of wore, especially KJ's character Archie, wore all the stuff that you saw in the iconic comic book. So that was kind of a fun day for me to see that because that's what I remember from the comics.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If you could work more often with one of the cast members, who would it be?
Well, you know, even throughout the whole 3 years, I'm always really part of the Cooper storyline. And I work with Machen and Lily a lot, which is great. They're lovely people. But, you know, to tell you the truth, I always miss out on all the shenanigans on set all the time, you know. So all the stuff that you see that KJ and Cole and all the boys post, I never really get to be part of all those gags and that fun stuff because I'm never really in those storylines. So I think it'd be a lot of fun to work with KJ more. I'd like to work with him a bit more. He's got a good sense of humor and he's such a great kid.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is it like working with Cole Sprouse?
He is dreamy. Just dreamy. When I'm in scenes with Cole, I can't even speak, I just stare. Yeah. No, Cole's all right. I mean, other than the fact that that he has bad breath, he's not that intelligent, and he's really not that good looking. He's an okay guy. You know what? The first time I met Cole, I was so shocked at how intelligent and he's got a really deep soul. You know, he's got an old soul. He's really a deep thinker, very imaginative, very well spoken, and he's really gracious. Like I've seen him interact with you guys, and he always has time for his fans and for you guys, and which is amazing, you know, for a kid who's been in the business that long and for how much, you know, he's had to interact with fan bases around the world for so many years, and he still treats everyone with respect, and he always has time for everyone. So Riverdale is really lucky. The network is really lucky that they have such an amazing young cast because they really are all wonderful human beings, and they're all really talented. It's amazing. I remember Luke and I in the read-through of the pilot, and I had just met all the kids. They were all new. They're all green. They're all new to the business. Cole was the only kid that I knew had kind of been around for a bit. And as we started the read-through, every once in a while, Luke and I would look across the table at each other with kind of this, whoa, because we were just shocked at how good they were. And I'll never forget that moment. You know, we always used to laugh because, you know, now being the dads is so weird because him and I were always like, hold on a second, didn't we used to date these girls? Like, we were always the guys dating these girls, and now we're their dads. What the heck happened? Crazy. But, yeah, Cole's a wonderful, wonderful young guy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was it like filming the last episode of season 3?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, sorry. What was it like filming the last episode of season 3?
You know, it was a little bittersweet because I wasn't sure. Like, I don't know if that was my last episode or do I come back in another? Do I come back as another character? Do I cross over to Sabrina? Does she bring me alive? I don't know. Am I on Netflix now or the CW? I'm not sure. I mean, I thought the finale of season 3 was pretty big and epic, though. It was really well shot, and the kids were fantastic in it. The scene that Lily and I had in the forest, and just her reaction of seeing her dad being shot and stuff, you know, it was pretty good. They did a good job. It's always sad to end the show as far as each season, you know, because you know there's a bit of a lull before you see each other, and you know you really start to embody these characters in a bit, you know. So, you know, not that on my own time I run around and kill people, but you miss playing the characters. So at the end of the season, it's always a little bittersweet. Yeah. You're welcome.
Who's your favorite daughter to work with?
Oh. Okay, Lily's not here, so yeah, of course Tiara. Tiara's listening right now. No, let's see. You know, I can honestly tell you guys, I never really had any scenes with Tiara, right? I mean, there are always storylines about her and but I never really had any interaction. I had one interaction with Polly at the end of season 1, and this scene was cut out of the episode because they decided that Jughead was going to be a serpent. But at the end of season 1, when Lily gave that great speech about Riverdale, we need to be together, we need to support each other. Well, we come out of the hall, the town hall meeting, Machen, Polly, and myself, like, you know, as a family, and then Betty and Jughead meet us outside, and because we know that Jughead is now homeless, we actually invited Jughead to come live with us at the Cooper house. And what happened was they decided to not use that storyline because Jughead became a serpent. So really, that was kind of the only scene in the 3 years that I've ever really had with Tiara. So that's kind of odd because it just sort of seems like we're so interconnected, right? So I mean, I've done other movies with Tiara when she was younger and stuff. And she's lovely, and Lily is lovely. I don't think Lily has ever blown a piece of dialogue in 3 years that I've worked with her. She's always so prepared and so professional, and so she is really great to work with. She's a great actor. But it's a hard one to choose, right? Thank you.
What was your favorite scene to shoot?
My favorite scenes?
Scene.
Is that what you meant, scene?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so in season 1, episode 5, obviously you can tell it's my favorite scene because that's how much I remember it. This is how I always wanted Hal to be. The scene where Lily's character Betty comes home from a date and I'm working on the car in the garage, and she asked me what happened with Polly, and I explained, you know, my version of it. That's probably my favorite scene, just for the fact that that's always how I wanted Hal to do. I didn't want Hal to be an evil dad. I always wanted Hal to be kind of that never was part of all the stuff that was going on in Riverdale. Almost how Fred Andrews ended up being, you know, kind of the one sort of centerpiece of Riverdale that had some morality and some ethics, you know. And so that was the way that I always wanted to play Hal. And I think a lot of it is probably selfish because I have children that, you know, I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old boy, and you know, I love my time with them and I love spending time with them. So that bleeds over into sort of what I wanted the Hal to be, you know. Being the Black Hood is interesting, it's dimensional. I mean, obviously for someone to be that brainwashed, you know, it's pretty interesting that someone could go that route there. But if you guys remember that, the first season, that episode, that was probably my favorite. You're welcome.
What is your favorite part of being Hal?
Well, you know, I just always wanted Hal to be a little more. I always just got steamrolled by Alice all the time, didn't I? You know, and it never was like that. If you guys remember, you know, Alice was always the one that people were like, oh, she's so hard on Betty, and she's such a hard ass. And then the one episode in the basement when we had a fight and I told her that I wouldn't allow Polly to ever come back to the house, and she was like, I want my daughter back. All of a sudden, that's when it switched. Like, all of a sudden, Hal became the bad guy and Alice became the good person. And it was all, you know, really at that point in the storyline, you know, it was really all about me trying to keep a secret that the Blossoms and the Coopers were the same family, because no one knew that, not even Alice and Betty and stuff. So I always sort of envisioned Hal to just have these great relationships with his daughters and stuff, but you know, obviously the writers felt that was boring TV, so we went the route we did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. I wanted to ask you about the prison you pick up on more things than the kids do. So when I saw it, the first thing I thought was Silence of the Lambs. And I've noticed that throughout the show that they do things like that. Is that intentional? Like, do they tell you this is what we're going for, channel your Hannibal Lecter, or is it just...
Yeah. You know, they don't tell you that, but you know, when I read it, when I visually saw what they were doing, I mean, you notice that the show pays homage to a lot of, you know, shows that the writers like, I think, you know, or where they want to go with it. I mean, yeah, that pretty much was a blatant rip-off of Silence of the Lambs. But I you know, I tried not to be too Hannibalish, but I still had to play Hal and now in a whole different way. I mean, the Cooper Home movie, I found out that I was the Hood like 2 days before we shot that. And so I had to become that guy. Like I had to go from, because I didn't even know I was that guy. So now I had to go through a whole, as far as a preparation as an actor, I had to go through a whole backstory of what I felt led up to that moment. And so those are the moments that I still had to have in all of those prison cell scenes. And so it was quite a transition to go from who I thought I was to how I ended up. And so I tried not to be too, again, I didn't want to have everyone go, it was just, you know, basically trying to be Anthony Hopkins. But, I mean, that character in Silence of the Lambs was pretty amazing too, like all the dimension he had as far as like, you know, so super intelligent, but so evil, you know? And so that to me is what makes those characters interesting. And, so I just tried to create my own Hannibal Lecter in a sense, but I really enjoyed those scenes. I thought they were interesting, you know, to see that relationship evolve. I really wish that could have evolved a bit more rather than, I honestly never played it ever, like I was gonna break out and try and kill Billy. Now, I didn't even know. It wasn't until I saw the script where he's now chasing her in the hallway with the hook. And I was just shocked by it. I thought, holy smokes, like, so basically I was just lying the whole time in the prison, but I didn't know where the storyline, I was playing it real. I thought that I was actually, you know, starting to, you know, have this connection with Betty again. So, kind of interesting, yeah. You're welcome.
Hi, so even though Hal is pretty dark, do you think he still has some good to him?
Yeah, I think he does. I think that he definitely has room to be redeemed. And I think he has still has a deep love for his kids. And again, I go back to the fact that he was an 8-year-old boy that was brainwashed. And you know, no one is born to hate. You know, people are taught to hate, whether it be racism or however. You know, you're taught that. Everyone is born to love each other, I believe, as human beings. Obviously, you know, people are wired differently. You know, the brain is a pretty amazing thing, and it can't all fire on cylinders all the time. But you know, when a little 8-year-old boy is taught so much, you know, hate and, you know, to purge the Riverdale of sin, that's just odd to me. So to me, there's still got to be some sort of good in there that can still come out. So I always hope for that still, that he does. I don't know, maybe it would be boring though, right? I mean, maybe Hal wouldn't be as much fun if he didn't become the Black Hood, I don't know, but we'll see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey there.
What's that, sorry? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's a lot more related history there than the audience knows as well, as far as Penelope goes, yeah.
So I have a two-part question.
Sure.
Well, two questions, technically. Doesn't have anything to do with the show. First one, how does it work on the set of The Predator?
Well, okay, so obviously I didn't really go in, I wasn't in the movie that much, but what happened was I was shooting Riverdale at the time, so I didn't really have an opportunity to be anything more than what I did. And so I wanted to be part of a film like that just because I have a 12-year-old boy, and so he enjoys all that type of stuff. And so I thought it'd be cool. It was cut down a little bit, even though I was only in for a day. But the interesting thing is that I shot my part of the movie in November of that year, and they did 2 days shooting in October